The morning Anna Dalton picked up her mop, she had no idea she would walk into a boardroom and rewrite an $800 million deal. In fact, no one in the entire building even knew she spoke French, let alone that she once negotiated international contracts at the highest level. But when the company's future collapsed in a single phone call and the French investors arrived early, a secret Anna had buried for years exploded back to life. Stay with this story because what happens in the next few minutes will challenge everything you think you know about second chances. Michael Irwin had negotiated with oil magnates, tech billionaires, and Wall Street veterans, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for the kind of panic that twisted in his gut that morning in downtown Chicago. Sweat collected at his collar as he stared at the clock on the glass wall of the 40th floor conference room. 30 minutes. That was all he had before the Beaumont and Partners investors walked in expecting a flawless $500 million presentation. And his star interpreter, the only person who could handle the French cultural nuances, was lying in the ICU after a catastrophic car accident on Lakeshore Drive. Michael slammed his phone onto his desk as Caroline Hayes, his executive assistant, hovered in the doorway, white-knuckling a stack of reports like they were funeral papers. "Caroline," Michael said, voice cracking slightly. "Tell me you found a replacement?" She swallowed. "Sir, every French interpreter in the city is already booked. The earliest we can get is 4 p.m. Michael stared at her. 4 p.m. He looked at the clock. They land in 20 minutes. If this deal fell apart, Irwin Global Holdings would be forced into mass layoffs, stock collapse, and the kind of public humiliation that ruins CEOs overnight. 15 years of work gone. Ethan Rogers, his CFO, rushed in. "Michael, you all right? You look, tell me you know someone who speaks French." Michael snapped, desperation leaking into his voice. Ethan hesitated. "My daughter's French tutor." "I said someone professional." "Tutor," Ethan repeated quietly. "Michael, that's all I've got." Michael pressed his palms into his eyes. "French investors don't do English meetings unless they trust you, and trust comes from protocol, elegance, respect." He pointed toward the window where the skyline shimmered under the winter sun. They didn't fly 8 hours to be greeted by Google Translate. Caroline's intercom buzzed. "Sir, a black Mercedes just pulled up at the entrance." They were here. Michael felt his stomach drop. He paced the office like a man heading toward a firing squad, the entire staff watching in stunned silence. This wasn't the controlled, charismatic CEO they knew. This was a man watching his entire empire tilt toward disaster. And that was when she appeared. Or rather, when he finally noticed her. A cleaning cart rolled slowly past the hallway. Pushing it was a woman he had seen 100 times but never truly looked at. Anna Dalton, 43, worn blue uniform, hair tied in a simple low ponytail. Eyes lowered like someone trained to take up as little space as possible. But as the words French interpreter echoed through the office, Anna's steps faltered. Caroline rushed by her frantic, nearly colliding with the cart. "Sorry, Anna, not now. The whole building is practically on fire," she muttered breathlessly. But Anna didn't move aside. Instead, she lifted her chin slowly as if battling some old instinct to stay invisible and stepped into Michael's doorway. "Mr. Irwin," she said gently. "I overheard the situation." Michael blinked. "Anna, now really isn't the time for cleaning. I can help." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't tremble, but it landed with the weight of something dangerous and unexpected. Michael stared. "Anna, help?" How Anna swallowed, fingers tightening around the handle of her cart. "I speak French, fluently." Silence crashed into the room. Even Caroline froze. Michael blinked once, then twice. "You." "What? I lived in France for 12 years, Anna said. "Worked there. I know the culture. The etiquette." Her voice deepened, shifted slightly, becoming something elegant, almost aristocratic, as she added softly, "Je peux vous aider, Monsieur Irwin, si vous me faites confiance." "I can help you, Mr. Irwin, if you trust me." The French rolled off her tongue like silk. Caroline's jaw dropped. Ethan's eyebrows shot up. Michael stared at Anna as though she had split open a door he didn't know existed. "Caroline," Michael whispered, "get her into a blazer. Now." "Ethan, stall the Beaumonts at the lobby. Tell them we're preparing a private suite for their comfort." "Move." The office scrambled to life. Caroline practically pulled Anna into the executive washroom. "Anna, if you're lying and this goes wrong, even a little, Michael will fire all of us." Anna looked into the mirror. A tired woman stared back, dark circles, lines of exhaustion, uniform fading from years of bleach. But behind the fatigue, something sharp flickered, something powerful. "I'm not lying," she said quietly, "and you'll need to trust me too." Carolyn handed her a navy blazer and crisp white blouse. Anna slipped into them as if she had done it 1,000 times before. "Wow," Carolyn whispered. "You look like a—" But Anna cut her off. "No time. Tell me everything about the meeting." 5 minutes later, transformed and steady-eyed Anna stepped into Michael's office. And for the first time he saw her, not the cleaner who emptied bins and mopped executive floors, but a woman with unmistakable poise, a woman who carried herself with the confidence of someone who once stood at the top and had fallen. "Anna," Michael said quietly before we walk in there, "I have to ask, are you absolutely sure you can do this?" She met his eyes with a calm that could steady earthquakes. "Mr. Irwin, I've closed multi-million-dollar deals with French executives who make the Beaumonts look like interns." Michael's heart thudded. "Who exactly were you before this?" Anna gave a small, sad smile. "A different version of myself, one I thought was gone forever." Down the hall, the elevator bell chimed. The Beaumont investors were stepping out. Michael straightened. "All right, Anna, this is it." She squared her shoulders. "No," she corrected softly. "This is only the beginning." And together they walked toward the conference room, unaware that the next 3 hours would change both of their lives and the future of Irwin Global Holdings forever. Do you feel Anna is hiding even deeper secrets that no one in the company suspects? The double doors of the conference room closed behind them with a soft, dignified thud, the kind that told you every breath inside had weight. 3 impeccably dressed men, Jean-Claude Beaumont, his son Philip, and their financial chief, looked up as Anna and Michael entered. The air shifted instantly. It wasn't just surprise, it was assessment. The French were masters at it. Anna stepped forward before Michael could introduce her, dipping her head with perfect subtlety and offering a greeting in French so fluid and elegant, the room paused as if suspended between heartbeats. Even the seasoned investors blinked, not expecting perfection. Natalie's low uniform had been replaced by a blazer that looked like it belonged in an embassy. Her posture, her tone, her measured breaths, she wasn't pretending. She was stepping back into a life she had once lived. Michael stood beside her, utterly silent, watching something he didn't yet understand. A few minutes ago, he had been ready to lose everything. Now he felt as if he were witnessing the opening scene of a miracle. Anna led the small introductions with precision, weaving small talk with cultural cues, mentioning the Beaumont family's philanthropic work in Lyon, referencing a recent article about French trade regulations. Jean-Claude's brows lifted higher with each sentence. Philip stopped checking his watch. The third man scribbled notes. Then came the moment Michael feared most. The numbers, the projections, the proposed structure, the contract that needed flawless translation, context explanation. Michael began speaking in English carefully, sentence by sentence, but Anna didn't simply translate. She reshaped, refined, elevated. Where he said this expansion will increase our footprint, she added nuance about American market security and the stability of the Midwest logistics sector. Where he explained risks, she contextualized them with comparisons to French companies the Beaumonts knew personally. It was like watching a conductor turn a hesitant melody into a symphony. At one point, Philip leaned forward and fired off a series of rapid, highly technical questions in French so dense that even Jean-Claude gave a small wince. Michael's heart dropped. He wasn't ready for this. Not without a real interpreter. Not without weeks of preparation. But Anna didn't hesitate. She answered directly in French, referencing international tax codes, deal structures common in Europe, legal models that made the Beaumonts exchange surprised glances. When she mentioned a 2018 ruling in the European Court of Justice and how it related to holding companies operating in American jurisdictions, all 3 investors suddenly leaned in. Michael stared at her stunned. This wasn't a woman who knew French. This was a woman who knew the world. After nearly 40 minutes, Jean-Claude said something quietly to Philip, and the younger man nodded. Jean-Claude then turned to Michael in English, so proper it was almost theatrical. Mr. Irwin, he said, forgive me, but I must ask. Where did you find her? Michael opened his mouth, but Anna answered before he could speak. I was already here, she said softly, just not in the role you expected. The Beaumonts exchanged another look, this time tinged with something Michael had been begging the universe for all week: respect. But the real turning point came when the financial director presented the proposed structure for the $500 million alliance. The moment he laid out the plan, Anna's expression changed, not in fear, not in hesitation, but in recognition. She listened, tracking every layer, every clause, every hidden implication. And then she interrupted, politely, calmly, with the authority of someone who had spent a lifetime navigating these waters. In the United States, she said in flawless French, this structure would be acceptable. But in France, it violates two transparency regulations. And here in Illinois, it could trigger an audit that would freeze the entire operation for months. The room froze. Philip leaned forward sharply. How do you know this? Anna didn't flinch. Because I designed a nearly identical structure for Michelin's Latin American operations 12 years ago. And I watched what happened when one minor clause triggered international consequences. Michael felt his breath catch. All the pieces were falling into place. The confidence, the posture, the flawless French, the deep business instinct. Anna hadn't been improvising. She had been returning. Jean-Claude nodded, slowly, impressed rather than offended. French investors valued cultural fluency and intellectual elegance more than American bravado, and Anna possessed both effortlessly. What would you propose instead? He asked. In a single graceful motion, Anna took a pen and began sketching an alternative model, clear, transparent, legally sound in both jurisdictions, and somehow more profitable for everyone involved. As she explained, Philip leaned in so close he nearly knocked over his coffee. The financial chief began rewriting his notes at frantic speed. Michael couldn't stop staring. Not at the Frenchman, at her. This woman who every executive in the building had walked past without a second glance was now anchoring one of the largest deals his company had ever attempted. When she finished, the room fell into a silence so deep it felt ceremonial. And then Jean-Claude said quietly, "We have been negotiating globally for decades. Rarely do we encounter someone who understands both the technical and cultural dimensions of a deal at this level. Mr. Irwin, she is extraordinary." Anna lowered her eyes, deflecting the praise toward Michael with a diplomatic grace so natural it stunned him. Hours later, when the Beaumonts stepped out for a short break, Michael finally exhaled. His chest ached from holding in the panic he'd carried all morning. "Anna," he said quietly, "you didn't just save this meeting, you saved the entire company." But Anna didn't smile. Instead, a shadow crossed her face, the kind that belonged to a past she never intended to reopen. "Michael," she whispered, "there's something you need to know about who I used to be." His pulse quickened. Something in her voice and the weight of those words warned him this wasn't a confession, it was an unraveling. And whatever she revealed next would not just change how he saw her, it would change everything. Michael stood still, the hum of the air vents the only sound between them. Anna's eyes did not waver. She wasn't afraid of him seeing her truth. She was afraid of what her truth might cost him. "Michael," she said quietly, "before I came here. Before all of this, my name wasn't just Anna Dalton. In France, I was known as Anna Christina Dumont, Director of Operations for Michelin Latin America. I negotiated contracts larger than this entire building. I shaped international strategy. I lived a life that felt carved from ambition." Michael felt a shifting weight in his chest. "What happened?" Anna inhaled slowly, as if lifting old rubble. "My husband Francis was arrested for tax fraud and money laundering. The press tore me apart. They assumed I was involved. I wasn't. But when mud is thrown, innocence doesn't matter. Overnight, I went from a celebrated leader to someone no company wanted to touch." She paused, voice tightening. "I lost everything, home, reputation, friends. I returned to the United States with nothing but my son and a last name that had become a stain." The silence that followed was thick, an echo of years she had spent hiding in plain sight. Michael looked at her with something deeper than sympathy, recognition. Not of her past role, but of her strength. "You rebuilt yourself," he whispered. even when the world decided you didn't deserve another chance. Before Anna could respond, the conference room door opened and Caroline peeked inside. "They're ready for you both." Michael nodded, then leaned closer to Anna. "We finish this deal together, and after that, we talk about your future here." The final round with the Beaumonts was nothing short of transformative. Anna no longer translated. She led. She clarified. She corrected. She built bridges where silence once lived. Her alternative structure didn't just impress the investors, it protected both companies from the pitfalls she had once seen ruin careers. 3 hours later, Jean-Claude Beaumont signed the final page with a firm, satisfied stroke. "Mr. Irwin," he said, extending a hand, "congratulations. But allow me to say something plainly. Your company is lucky to have her." Anna lowered her gaze, but Michael did not. "Yes," he replied, "we are." When the Frenchmen left, their departure echoing like the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. Michael motioned for Anna to follow him to his office. She stepped inside, unsure of where this conversation would land and unsure if she wanted to know. Michael closed the door behind them. "Anna, I've watched executives fall apart under pressure. But today you didn't just handle pressure, you mastered it. You reshaped a $500 million deal into an $800 million alliance. You protected us from a legal trap I didn't even see." Anna shook her head. "It wasn't me alone. You trusted me. That mattered." That's exactly why he said, stepping toward her, "I'm offering you a formal position at Irwin Global Holdings. Not as an interpreter, not as a consultant, but as senior partner and director of international strategy." Her breath caught. "Michael, that's too much. You barely know me." "I know enough," he said softly. "I know you're the most brilliant negotiator I've ever seen. I know your name deserves a place at the top, not a mop in your hand. And I know you changed this company in a single day." Tears threatened the edge of her composure. Years of swallowed pride trembled at the surface. "I don't know if I can handle that level of attention again." "You already did," he reminded her. "Today." Anna pressed a hand to her chest, grounding herself in the moment that felt impossibly surreal. "If I accept, I want something in return. Anything. I want salary increases for every cleaning staff member in this building. And I want a scholarship program for their children. If I'm going to climb back up, I won't do it alone. I want them to rise with me." Michael smiled, struck by how quickly she thought beyond herself. Done. And just like that, the woman who had once been dismissed as invisible stepped back into the world she was born for. The announcement rolled through Irwin Global like thunder. When Michael introduced her as the new senior partner, the room erupted in applause. Ethan Rogers was the first to cheer. Caroline cried openly. Even employees who barely knew her name felt the gravity of something rare, someone rising not because of privilege, but because of undeniable brilliance. That night when Anna walked into her new office on the 38th floor, her name already printed on the glass, she let herself breathe fully, for the first time in years. Her son Gabriel called her minutes later. "Mom," he said breathlessly, "everyone at my university is talking about a woman who saved a major Chicago firm with her negotiation skills." "Is that?" "Yes, Anna," whispered, smiling through tears. "It's about us." 6 months later, Irwin Global Holdings expanded into 2 European markets. Anna led every negotiation. She built alliances, rewrote policies, and became a voice on international panels. Her name, her real name, was restored. A year after the deal, she stood on the main stage of a global conference in New York, receiving the award for International Leader of the Year. Gabriel stood in the front row, pride shining in his eyes. Michael applauded harder than anyone. As she accepted the award, Anna looked out at the crowd of leaders, investors, and young professionals. "I was once a woman who believed her future had ended, but sometimes life offers second chances disguised as the most painful chapters. What matters is whether we have the courage to step into them." The audience rose in a full standing ovation. When she stepped off stage, Michael approached her. "Anna," he said, "you didn't just come back. You transformed everything around you." And she finally believed him.